It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. Part of me feels like I should welcome you to the Captain Obvious episode of the Daily Stand Up Podcast. But I realized that this topic is one that has rang true. I was just recently at the Scrum gathering in New Orleans, and it was absolutely amazing. And I had someone who was pretty new to Agile, and what they were talking to me about was the difference between product planning and project planning, and the difference between a product manager and a project manager. And they said that after reading a bunch of information on Agile versus traditional mindset, that they were completely lost and completely confused. And for me, I'm sitting here going, oh, that's impossible. It's so easy. And then I realized as I started delving into it that it may not be as easy as I thought. So you're probably asking yourself, okay, it's semantics. Why should I even care about the difference between product and project management? Do the differences actually matter? And despite each one of those being distinct roles, product managers and project managers are often confused. Um, it's one of these things where I see people who just don't understand the difference really struggle with. And for someone who's been in the industry for a long time, for me, I'm saying, okay, this is pretty straightforward. But it's unfortunate when someone looks at this and says both of the abbreviations go to PM, so are they the same? Or oftentimes you hear people say go ask the PM, and you don't know whether it's talking about product manager, project manager, or personnel manager, right? I mean, I can go down the list with you. There's so many things PM can stand for. But if you break it down to its simplest form, one manages a product, the creative strategic thinking, how the product comes to pass, creating and managing a backlog, etc. The other one manages projects. They're focused on execution. A lot of people describe them as a taskmaster. So when you're trying to discuss the differences about what happens, sometimes it's easy for you to lay into an example. So a story was told to me once. It was a typical Monday with the usual commute and my favorite playlist, a day that started like any other, but soon proved anything but. It all started going downhill when a senior manager blurted out during a morning meeting, "Product managers are weasels." An accusation that caught me off guard, and frankly, it made me upset. Setting the tone for years of reflection and clarification. Yet rather than go on the attack for some unknown otherworldly reason, I paused and took a curious position. Clearly, this manager conflated the roles of a product manager and a project manager, although I'd argue that project outcomes are far less certain than those of products. Clearly, the weasel comment came from mischaracterization of the trustworthiness of the project plan. And as you can imagine, in that situation, you're left defenseless, right? So I know that earlier in my career, I don't know that I could properly articulate the difference between PMs, leading to me being asked to give a lecture on why product managers weasel out of dates, unlike project managers who don't. And I think that if you look, if you look at it from that perspective, you'll quickly realize that project plans are important, but product plans are even more important. If you're trying to do Gantt charts and figure out what you can't get done, those are Gantt charts, and they're not the same as roadmaps. And I think the two are completely different. I think in some ways, in the early days, I may have even helped cause the confusion. I learned how to use Microsoft Project efficiently. I went to classes, I learned proficiently how to use it, and I was good. I could create Gantt charts with the best of them. But as I grew and as I started to interact with product managers, I quickly figured out that, presented dates and being a taskmaster and driving a team to get things done, I was behaving like a project manager, and I didn't want to be in that boat. I was becoming quickly hated. It would have been easy just to shrug things off, but you need to keep going. You need to keep pressing forward. You can't make things miss the deadline. So you can dig in and say, well, what do I do? Well, now it's time for me to start creating reports and dashboards and figuring things out, creating comparison charts and something that articulates the difference between how a product manager manages and how a project manager manages and why it makes a difference. What's the difference between a product roadmap and a project plan and a release map, right? Or release plan. Immediately, the heavens parted and angels began to sing. It all became clear, or at least it became clear for me. I quickly discovered that by the end of the week, I came in ready for a fight. I came in ready for a battle. I was ready to lay out my case with strong stories and roadmaps and example. But then I realized that at the end of the week, people didn't care. They just wanted an accurate depiction of where we really are, what expectations could be set, and how we could press forward based on those expectations. Now, the project that came to my mind when I thought about trying to describe the difference between product management and project management was the Sydney Opera House. So I went and did some research on the Sydney Opera House. Now, that thing's a marvel of modern architecture. It's insane. It's more than just a building, it's kind of the symbol of Australia, right? But before it even started, it was a product of grand vision, and it was meant to symbolize the nation's cultural aspirations. It was meant to symbolize how far they've come. However, the journey from this conceptual blueprint to its completion tells a really big story about the interplay and frequent clash between the visionary side and the project manager side of what actually happened. So, Jorn Utsen's design won an international competition in 1956, dazzling with the futuristic sail-like shells. His vision was bold and complex, pushing boundaries of contemporary architecture products and engineering practices. The Opera House was meant to be an innovative product in the form of a building that would not only serve as a performance space, but also stand as an iconic image of the country itself. A product that delivered extraordinary aesthetic and great cultural value. As construction commenced, however, project management took the lead. It was responsible for actual delivery of the product, meeting deadlines. This meant effectively managing the timelines, the budgets, construction methods, and human people that were going to be working on it. However, the groundbreaking nature of the design led to significant practical challenges. The technology necessary to realize those roof shells didn't exist yet, leading to massive delays and huge budget overruns. For those in software product companies, this echoes the clash that often occurs between design or desirability, product and marketability, and engineering and feasibility. The climax of the project occurred when these two management domains clashed dramatically. Cost escalated from what they believed to be 7 million Australian dollars to an astronomical 102 million Australian dollars, and the project timeline extended far beyond the original scope. Political and public pressures mounted, ultimately leading to Utsen's resignation in 1966. His resignation was the critical turning point where the necessity for balanced approach between visionary product management and pragmatic project management became painfully clear. Post Utsen, a new approach was adopted. The team reconciled the artistic vision with the logistical feasibility. This phase of the project emphasized the alignment between a product's architectural vision and the practical realities of project management. The team focused on technological innovations and management strategies that allowed them to construct the shells and other complex features of the Opera House. In 1973, the team finished the Opera House, and to this day it serves as a lesson in challenges and triumphs of executing a visionary product through effective project management. The lesson learned was clear. Visionary products require innovative ideas and a robust framework for execution. Product and project management must work in tandem, with clear communication, shared goals, and mutual respect for each other's expertise. Interesting. Just a very interesting story about Sydney Opera House. I think that sometimes it's a matter of misaligning or misunderstanding the project and product management mindset. It's whether or not we can get in line or not, and it's a mercenary versus a missionary, so to speak. So, as a consultant, like a project manager, I've had the opportunity to come in, do a job, and leave. However, I've always wanted to know what happened next. The product manager, call it the product manager. I always wanted to know what was going to happen and whether it was successful. So, out of pure interest, I went and asked ChatGPT to describe a project manager humorously. Here's what it came up with, which perfectly highlights the mercenary nature of project managers. And for fun, I asked DALL-E to create an image based on a story. Hence, the somewhat strange image that I'll display later gives you a good idea of this. I, Penelope Periwinkle, am a proud project manager. We project managers are knights in shining Gantt charts, slaying dragons of scope creep and rescuing damsels in distress named deliverables. But today, the dragon had spouted 3 additional heads, each spewing flames of product feedback. Across the table, perched atop a cloud of sticky notes, sat Brenda B. Brilliant, my nemesis, the product manager. Brenda believes features sprout like wildflowers in a meadow, each one more magical than the last. On the other hand, I see them as pebbles in a backpack, each adding weight until I collapse under the tyranny of a deadline. Penelope and Brenda are a friendlier representation of the idea of mercenaries versus missionaries. I think that using this example, here, just picture this. A project plan is like a well-organized grocery list, while a product roadmap could be like a treasure map to lead to the holy grail of product success. The project plan tells you exactly what ingredients you need and in what order to make a delicious meal you committed to for you and your family, or in this case, a successful project. Meanwhile, a product roadmap is vague. X marked a spot on a treasure map that takes you on an adventure through the treacherous waters of product development. You must overcome challenges, defeat competitors, and ultimately find a treasure, a product that customers love. In other words, a project plan is a detailed step-by-step playbook for achieving a specific goal. A product roadmap is a high-level strategic plan that outlines the vision, direction, and key milestones for a product success. It's a nitty-gritty versus the big picture. That aside, there are also similarities between both. They both direct you to a goal with steps and milestones, and they both represent a significant undertaking. Yet a project plan is meant to be the way, the Mandalorian, if you will. A product roadmap is a guide that learns from customers and adapts along the way, more like Yoda. So if you think about it from this perspective, you might call out here are a few key ways to understand the differences. Project plans focus on execution, a set of tasks to reach an objective. Product roadmaps are strategic documents that tell a story of a product, the direction and development over time. Project plans typically focus on shorter durations and higher task date fidelity. Product roadmaps cover longer periods of horizon and concentrate on intervals such as quarters. Project plans are rigid and structured. Deviation is not welcome. Product roadmaps are often flexible and subject to change. They're living documents. Project plans focus on a smaller set of internal stakeholders and task coordination, while product roadmaps are intended for broader internal and external audiences. Project plans focus on output. Product plans focus on outcome. And we all know we should be focused on outcome instead of output. So I think that if you want to make sure you're doing this right, you need to make sure you have your head around what the difference is between product and project, how you're treating it, and make sure you have a clear vision and strategy on how to execute. Now, once again, I'm not saying having a deadline is not important, having a date's not important, but I am saying that if you let the product vision go by the wayside, you're going to be focused on the wrong things. Remember, it's always better to focus on outcome with as little output as possible. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. I'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.